A lot of vendor relationships stay transactional. But what happens when a TA team and a technology vendor actually build something together? Keep listening to find out why the results might change how you think about partnerships. Support for this podcast comes from Vonk. Vonk supports global enterprises worldwide, driving efficient hiring through AI-powered job distribution and recruitment intelligence. Vonk recently unveiled Echo, a new AI agent ecosystem designed to make overwhelmed TA teams and outdated funnels a thing of the past. Echo rebuilds the hiring process for speed, clarity, and fairness without losing human control. To find out more, go to vonk.com. And Vonk is spelled VONQ. That's vonk.com.
There's been more of scientific discovery, more of technical advancement and material progress in your lifetime and mine than in all the ages of history.
Hi there, welcome to episode 760 of Recruiting Future with me, Matt Alder. Strategic partnerships in talent acquisition can mean the difference between incremental improvement and transformational change. But what does a true strategic partnership actually look like? How do you move beyond the traditional vendor-client relationship to genuine co-creation? My guests this week are Simon Bishop, Head of Talent Acquisition at Software One, and Ritu Mahankar, CEO at Vonk. Their partnership spans employer branding, recruitment marketing, and agentic AI deployment, all while Software One was navigating the complex integration challenge of merging two TA functions post-acquisition. Their collaboration was central to Vonk's recent launch of Echo, their agentic AI platform. Software One was a development partner, helping shape the product through real-world testing and feedback. You can watch the full launch of Echo on Vonk's LinkedIn page. Hi, Simon. Hi, Ritu, and welcome to the podcast. Simon, your first time on the show. Can you introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do?
But sure, yeah. Hi, Matt. Great to be with you today. So, I'm Simon Bishop. I'm the Global Head of Talent Acquisition for Software One. Software One is a AI-powered software and cloud solutions provider based all over the world in 70 countries. We've got about 13,000 people working for us right now, and we help our clients to navigate complex IT environments, really giving them that confidence to make the right decisions about the future setup of their IT infrastructure. And I think particularly was worth calling out this year. That's been, a big year for us. We have been going through an integration with another company called Crayon. So this year has all been about that combination and putting the best of both those companies together to really drive us forward.
Wow, that sounds like a quite challenging year, and we'll sort of dig into that as we get into the conversation. Ritu, great to have you on the show again. Can you quickly introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do for people who may not have seen you on the show before?
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to be here, Matt. Thank you for having me. I'm Ritu Mahankar. I'm the CEO of Vonk. You didn't mention one big thing, which I will mention, our launch, which we did a couple of weeks ago. It was such a great day. And if you'd missed the launch, please do go watch it if you didn't catch it. Or reach out to us and tell us if you have any thoughts. So more about Vonk now. We're a recruitment technology company solving a really critical challenge around how do you find, screen, and assess candidates at scale while keeping the process fair, transparent, and human-centered. As I mentioned, we've launched Echo, our agentic AI that conducts dynamic screening and interviews and generates really comprehensive dossiers for each candidate. And we're embedded in over 70 ATSs and HCM platforms globally.
Fantastic. And I think the partnership that your two companies have is kind of really interesting. And that's why I was really keen to sort of have this conversation and dive into that in a bit more detail. So let's kind of start with that. So Simon, you've been working with Vonk for a while. How did everything start?
Yeah, probably going back sort of 4 or 5 years ago, I think, is how long the actual partnership has been working together. But I'd split it into two halves. So, the origins of our relationship was using Vonk as a multi-posting tool aligned to our ATS. And then I think when Ritu came on board with Vonk a couple of years ago, we invited them to join us at our TA leadership meeting in Amsterdam. And it was kind of like a reset moment because Ritu was new. She wanted to hear from one of her customers. And I think she sat in a room with all of my leaders. And yeah, I think there was some quite open and honest exchanges and feedback. And what I mean by that is that we absolutely saw the value in the tool that we partnered with, but I don't think we were realizing the value out of it. So out of that meeting, there really became a really strong, positive conversation that was Vonk trying to understand what is it we were trying to achieve, as opposed to maybe looking backwards at maybe some of the things we didn't get right the first time round. And it was the beginning of that conversation that really took us to, I guess, where we are today, where we're here talking, because it felt like a genuine sort of two-way conversation rather than a technology provider just trying to pitch you a product that would solve a single problem.
Absolutely. Ritu, what was that experience like?
Gosh, I remember that Amsterdam meeting. Simon's team was skeptical, rightfully so. And they certainly didn't hold back when it came to feedback. They'd seen, of course, a lot of HR tech vendors making big promises. But what I really appreciated of that conversation was they were very clear about their pain points. That's when we knew we could actually help, but more importantly, that we could learn from them. Software One is a sophisticated global tech company. They weren't just going to implement what we built, but rather they were going to challenge it, break it even, help us make it better. We first ensured all TA leaders knew exactly how we could potentially help when it came to job distribution and recruitment marketing. We did a ton of refresher training and enablement on what our technology did and how we can help them both reach both passive and active candidates. So it's been a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And Simon, why did you decide to kind of go, deeper into what Vonk do than, what you were sort of currently working with them on?
Yeah, well, I think a couple of parts. I think that's kind of reset to sort of realize the value in the bit that we were already doing with them. So sort of that was the reset part. But then it was out of that conversation, as I say, it was that listening, I suppose, that part of it is like, what is it where do you want to go to over the next couple of years? What are your problems? What are your challenges? And then Vonk sort of being very open with their own development and where they were going as well. And I guess sort of going back maybe 12 months ago now, that was when they approached us about becoming a development partner on their new AI screening capabilities, because Richard had heard me talking about that in meetings and saying, look, this is the future. We all know that's the future. We need to identify the right tool to go with, but it's not just about the tool. It's about being with a company that actually understands what you're trying to achieve, and the ability to be in the developmental side of that as well was really interesting, because it's not just buying an off-the-shelf solution. It's actually having the ability to work with their team to actually get exactly what we want out the end of it. So it just felt like they were listening, and it felt like we had a say, and that could deliver us better results than some of the other options we were looking at.
And from our perspective, we specifically chose Software One as one of our first development partners because we'd already proven we could deliver for them on the marketing side. We understood their business, we understood their challenges, and of course, most importantly, their ambitions for the future. When we were ready to develop the agentic AI, we didn't just want any customer. We wanted a sophisticated global tech company that could push us, that could challenge us, that could help build something truly transformational. And Simon's team was perfect for that because the feedback loop, that was invaluable. That collaborative approach meant that implementation was smoother because they were shaping the product to their needs in real time. And our product became stronger for all our customers as a result of that. And from our perspective, we saw an opportunity to support Software One holistically, not just making screening more efficient, but helping them build a much more proactive strategic TA function that could compete for the talent in incredibly competitive markets.
Absolutely. And I'm really keen to dive in and talk about the agentic AI and kind of how that developed. Before we do, though, let's just talk a little bit about employer branding and the employer branding stuff that you kind of worked on. So when it comes to employer branding, Simon, what's the challenge that you're trying to solve, or the challenge that you were trying to solve at the time?
I think, I've been here 9 years, so quite a long journey with the company, but I think we kind of have faced the same challenges the whole way along that, which is obviously the tech market is massive, and there's some very big companies in there. And, we're no longer, I would say, a small fish, but we're certainly a medium-sized fish at best. So when it comes to trying to attract the best talent and really landing Software One as an employer of choice in that very competitive market, we've always needed to make some noise. And so the whole branding, the employer branding journey aligned to that has been about positioning us as to, why are we an organization that maybe feels a bit different, that can really give candidates a different kind of exposure and a different kind of work experience compared to maybe some of the bigger tech companies, which they'll all know, and they're the brands that everybody would want to speak against. So we focus an awful lot on our culture as an organization, the fact that maybe we're a little bit leaner, that whilst we are now 13,000 people as opposed to just about 1,000 people when I started, we still have some of that agility of a smaller company. We still allow people to really drive their own careers, but they can really make a difference. They can actually see the impact of what they're doing. They're not just sort of lost in a large organization. So it's about transferring all of that into that brand, which goes out into the market, getting that seen as far and wide as possible, but also in a very targeted way as well, because we're quite certain as to the kind of talent we want and where they exist and where they sit, whether that's geographically or in the industry. So we need sort of like the big bang branding about here we are, this is what the company is, but then we need the more targeted recruitment marketing and branding, which is actually hitting the screens and the desks of those people that we actually want to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've, as part of that, you kind of run campaigns across multiple channels. Give us some kind of examples of some of the things that you've done.
Yeah, so we've really diversified. I mean, so our branding journey, actually, once I said I've been here 9 years, it's probably only the last sort of 4 or 5 years that our branding has really taken off. And as in, we've actually had dedicated people in the TA team actually driving it, expertise amongst that group as well. Now that's translated into us being able to go beyond just doing, your basics on LinkedIn. So going into things like Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, exploring things like Reddit, Google Ads as well. We try and find out where the candidates are and then try and engage with them in the right format on those platforms, as opposed to that sort of one size fits all approach, which is what I would say was probably like the first year or two of what we were doing just to establish some noise in the market. I think within that, just to call out a couple of examples, I mean, so in this combination that we've gone through the last year, one of the big sort of public announcements we wanted to make is that because both companies were known in the tech space, is that how we were coming together as a company, how we were combining our core values, which is something that both our employees and our customers really value about us. So we put together quite a long video, actually. It was 3 minutes because it was actually explaining the process of how we brought these two core value sets together and what that was going to feel like to the company, to our customers. So it ended up as a 3-minute video, which we worked with Vonk on to create a YouTube in-feed ad, which is the first time we'd actually done that. And despite the length of the video, because most things you'll hear about will say that you should keep it below 30 seconds, but despite the 3-minute length, it actually led to getting about 1.5 million impressions in just the first 20 days of that. And not only were the impression rates high, but actually it was nearly a 50% video through rate as well. So it was clearly engaging because people were actually bothering to stay to watch through to the end.
Fantastic. I want to get kind of Rita's thoughts on that in a second, but before we do, just talk us through the kind of results. So, huge amounts of impressions, obviously a lot of attention. How did that convert into engagement and applications?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously we've seen spikes in the traffic coming through to our main website as well as the career sections within that. There's been spikes in applications for all of our jobs across the board at that time as well. It's also, if you look at our other sites, so on Instagram, and so the follower rates that's going up on all the sites has gone up massively. I think our Instagram followers went up about 1,000% this year, off the back of not just this campaign, but a few of the other ones that we did as well. So we'd kind of reached a plateau where we were a bit stuck with sort of getting to that next level of engagement. And I think that the way that these campaigns have been set up and the targeting working behind them has really allowed us to go up to that next level. And now we can put our stuff out there to a much broader audience, but at the same time, a broader audience that is still in the space that we really want to speak to. My head of branding in my team, a guy called Devesh, he called that campaign the mother of all campaigns because of the impact it had, not just on what we were trying to talk about, but on the broader scope of what we're trying to do as well.
Fantastic. Rita, what was your sort of take on this type of campaign? How does it compare to other things you've seen? What really made it stand out?
Yeah, I think it was the multi-channel strategy. It really paid off, Matt. We ran targeted campaigns on different platforms for different objectives. As Simon alluded to on Instagram, we focused on building community. That was the biggest thing. Software One's follower count, as Simon mentioned, grew from 5,500 in February this year to over 8,750 by November this year. That's nearly 60% growth in engaged followers. This now gives Software One much more reach in every organic post. And if I think about TikTok, we ran campaigns in super competitive US and Canadian markets, 1.47 million impressions with a 4.38 CTR. That's exceptional for social media, especially TikTok. And again, I think the strategy we adopted together is based on this classic AIDA model, which is awareness, interest, desire, and action. And every campaign is designed to move candidates through that funnel deliberately. Because, however, candidates don't all move through this journey at the same pace, which makes it especially important to stay visible throughout the entire funnel. And so doing so ensures that you can meet them, exactly to Simon's point again, meet them where they are at any point in their journey.
Cool. I love this because so many people just think about recruitment marketing as job adverts and things like that, and it's just great to hear that kind of level of strategic thinking behind it. I mean, what's kind of next for it, Simon? As you kind of move into next year, what's the sort of the next stage or the next consideration?
Yeah, well, and actually, just back on your last comment, Matt, I think the other really interesting thing is you say that you don't need to be talking about TA or jobs to engage with people, because actually one of the other really interesting projects we did with Volk was on we created a diversity playbook, which was kind of guidance for candidates. Equally, we used it internally for hiring managers and for the TA team too, about both our DEIB commitments, but also considerations you need to make in these processes to make them fair and equity for all. And even that got nearly 1 million impressions as well. So it's the interconnection of the things around the topic that actually drive people towards you. And I think actually it can build that certain level of trust and interest that's more interesting than just, we've got this cool job or this cool career opportunity and things like that. So into next year, I mean, look, we're going to obviously, I think the whole journey here is that you're learning the whole time. And so the things we just mentioned have all happened in the last couple of months, and it's really changed our focus as to how and what we should be talking about in the market. We still need to do that core, branding and advertising kind of strategy, but I think all of the kind of thought leadership and ideas that we have are around the topics. We're certainly going to focus on those with different campaigns. We're still learning and exploring on some of these other platforms. So Reddit and TikTok that have been mentioned a few times. I think that's only been in the last 12 months, and we started to engage there. So it's also the kind of content that we want to develop to put onto those as well. So that's been quite a fun process for our team to get stuck into as well. And of course, as we go into next year, now that our integration is sort of like fully up and running, next year is all about talking about us as a combined company, what benefits that gives, whether it's candidates or our customers, and how we evolve as an organization together.
Yeah, and I suppose that's interesting as well because the world is full of mergers and acquisitions at the moment. I'm sure there are other TA leaders in a similar position. I mean, from an employer brand work perspective, what advice would you give to companies who are in a similar position to the one that you're in?
Yeah, start talking about it early. I'm sure in all those situations, there's always quite a long project plan for post-merger integration, and branding sometimes can sort of exist in the latter part of it. It's like, we'll get to that once we've sorted out all the inner workings of the company, but you need to start planning for it early, and you need to start actually acting on it early as well. And it has a twofold impact. That there's the public interest side of it, so that's really important. But obviously, we needed to keep hiring during this integration too. So you could end up with a situation where people are worried to join either side of the organization because they think there's going to be a lot of reorganizational structure and things like that. So you need to get the messaging out there quickly to say, hey, look, it's still business as usual here. We're still growing. We still need to hire great people. So getting that side out of it as well. I think the other thing that's really interesting is that the positive impact it has on the internal employees as well, because they follow us just like the external market does. And people do sometimes get frustrated during integration programs that they're not hearing as much as they want to hear as soon as they want to hear it. But by seeing some of this positivity coming through the employee branding side, it starts to create a dialogue internally as well. So that's kind of like a side effect, if you like, of what we're doing in the external market that has a positive impact internally too.
Fantastic. So I'm dying to talk about AI. So let's talk about the agentic AI part of all of this. So, again, Simon, what was it you were trying to solve that you felt AI and AI agents were the answer to?
Yeah. Okay. I'll try and break this down into points. So I think, all of us in TA, anyone that's listening to this will know that, this is the future. You've got to be looking into what's possible and what are the right sort of bets to make in the AI journey in talent acquisition right now. Then if I look at the kind of business challenges that we have at the moment, I mean, operating across 70 countries can lead to inconsistencies into the way that we are delivering to our business. And, that's not a criticism of anybody, but everyone has their own ways of working, their own cultures, their own expectations as to how they're doing things. So that was something else we were looking to solve to give a more consistent service to our hiring manager community. We have a lot of hiring managers that will be based in one country but operate across multiple regional setups. So at any one time, they might be dealing with a recruiter based in India or America or the UK or wherever it may be, but they don't care about that. All they care about is the experience they get, the quality of what they get, and the speed, of course, being the other thing as well. So there's that part of it. And then, of course, there is an efficiency part to this as well. There's what are our TA members actually doing with their time? And, are they spending too much of their time on tasks that can be done another way? Because what we really want our TA partners to be known as is business partners. We want them to be speaking to the business, understanding the business, getting quite deep into that to be experts that can represent those businesses in the market. So speed, efficiency, quality, consistency, and freeing up time of our team to actually realize their value back to the business.
And I'm sure you looked at kind of a number of sort of solutions around this. What was it about the way Vonk approached this that kind of stood out from everything else, or made you kind of realize that they were the right partner for you?
Yeah, I mean, we all, as TA leaders, TA people, we are inundated with spam, essentially saying, hey, look at this new cool AI tool. This is the best new thing out there. You got to have this, you got to have that. And it is quite a bit of a minefield, to be honest with you, because at some point you get overexcited and think, yeah, I'll try it all. And other times you need to sort of take a step back and say, like, what is the reality here? Well, what is it I'm trying to achieve? And which of these partners do I really trust that can deliver against that? So we kind of took a step back and, we spoke to a few different companies, some of the sort of big names out there. Obviously, we have ATS providers and, and LinkedIn and things like that we sort of kept an eye on their roadmap of what they were doing. But we didn't really see anything from those sides that kind of captured it all together and allowed us to solve multiple aspects of that problem, of those problem statements that I just said to you, what we were trying to achieve. And that's, do we believe that we can work with a partner who can target the right people? And that goes back to the branding part of this conversation that had been proven with Vonk. And then do we believe that the quality of the AI they have can actually really make that journey efficient and engaging for those candidates as well? And again, being part of the development process with that, there were things that we could feedback during the pilot to say, well, look, it'd be better if we could do it this way or that way. Or one example would be, it'd be great if they could, can the candidate choose whether they go down this AI screening option, or can they choose to speak to a human, or can they do it as a written engagement as opposed to a verbal engagement? All those kind of things that allowed us to see the tool evolve to what we would choose to design if we had the technical know-how to do it for ourselves. So I think it was all part of that journey, that back and forth, as Richie said earlier, those sort of feedback loops, those feedback sessions, piloting it in a smart way that you could learn what didn't work as well, so that you could really work out where this fits into your workflows.
Absolutely. And Richie, any kind of thoughts on how that panned out? Because it is an interesting approach in a kind of market where people are tending to sort of launch, complete products and then, hoping to get adoption from there.
Absolutely, Matt. I mean, again, not blowing our own trumpet, but we really differentiated ourselves that it's not just another chatbot or a CV parser. It's really agentic AI, which means it's an important distinction. Traditional recruiting AI has always been rule-based or pattern matching, parsing CVs for keywords, for asking fixed yes or no questions. It's always remained static. When we think about agentic AI, that's autonomous. Our AI agents conduct dynamic conversational interviews that really adapt in real time based on the candidate responses. So they ask intelligent follow-up questions. They probe deeper when they detect something interesting. They assess technical skills. They look for gaps between the job description and the candidate chat. They look for behavioral fit. They look for communication style. They look for problem-solving approach and somewhat cultural alignment. It's the difference between a multiple choice quiz and an actual conversation with a skilled recruiter. So I think that's what's truly differentiated.
Fantastic. And obviously one of the biggest things that I think we're seeing with AI is all of the kind of the change management around it and the different ways of thinking. I mean, Simon, from an implementation perspective, where did you start with all of that?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, Matt, because I'll be honest, not just with Vogue, but when we kind of started this conversation, both in my leadership team and then sort of going beyond the team, you do get that reaction of, or reluctance, shall we say. It's like, hang on, you're just getting me to pilot something that's going to replace me, which is, as I said, that's not the intent. The intent is actually to allow them to realize their value back to the business and hopefully do the bit which is more interesting to them as well. So there's a little bit of sort of hearts and minds piece, I think, at the beginning to do that. But then what we found is that there were, there were people in our team that had a real excitement and interest in AI generally. So, before we started going into formal pilots, people were playing around with ChatGPT, and we have Copilot here as well from Microsoft. So people were starting to do their own thing. So we kind of identified those people and brought them on board as like the most engaged people with this topic anyway. And that became our pilot group. And we picked people from different parts of the world and in different roles. So some were TA partners, some were sources. So coming at it from slightly different angles. And then we also made sure that the kind of jobs that we fed into it were varying as well. So whether that was by level of seniority or by sort of the requirements and various skill sets as well. So we really wanted to sort of do this. I was going to say scattergun. It wasn't scattergun. It was very planned, but we were trying to get this sort of, what's the best way to put it? A good examples from all over the place where we could see exactly how this would work in different scenarios, because we were very aware that in most of these situations, a one-size-fits-all approach is not going to be the right way to look at these things. And I think the team really got on board with it. And I think what they really liked was the processes and the kind of what happens to the candidate experience that Richard was just talking about, what you actually get at the end, this portfolio of information. It's that consistency again, but it's also extremely transparent. So the kind of skepticism about, well, can this AI agent actually do what a human could do? When you read the portfolio, it's actually better quality than what I think one of our recruiters might come up with. And that's not a criticism of them. It's because it's looked at it from all these angles and pulled it all together. And that's also super important when it comes to bringing this to the business as well. Because again, when you go through like your legal teams and stuff like that, and they're asking about the efficacy of these AI tools, the transparency is absolutely there for all to see as to how the guidance is being given and how that leads you to make decisions.
And what about the candidates? I think this is a kind of a really important area because, I just hear so much speculation that candidates don't like this. What was your experience from how the candidates reacted to it?
I think operating globally, there's always a cultural overlay to that answer, which is some cultures or countries seem to adapt and adopt to new technologies better than others. I think that also is not just about geography, it's also about age profile sometimes of people. I think one of the things that we found quite interesting, though, is that we might just default and think, oh, yeah, younger people are going to be more engaged with it than the more experienced candidates. But that actually wasn't what we saw. And I was very interested when I saw that data, and I asked Ritu and her team, I was like, why do you think that is? Because that kind of surprises me that we're seeing more senior candidates are actually choosing to go down the full AI route rather than asking for a human interaction during the process. And it comes down to time and availability. Those people are generally the busiest people. And so doing the process this way allows them to choose when they're doing it, when they're having the conversations, when they're providing the input. And that actually fits their lifestyle. So it's actually a lot better for them as well. I think also, it was really interesting that a couple of the pilot jobs we put through the tool were in the AI space. So that's us hiring AI consultants for ourselves. And they actually gave super positive feedback, not only about the experience, but also it positioned us as a good technology company in the AI space, because they were sort of, if you're using tools of this AI quality, that's the kind of AI company we want to come and work with.
Yeah, fantastic. That makes perfect sense. And in terms of kind of the actual, the results, the numbers that came out of this, talk us through that a bit.
Yeah. So if we go back to those problem statements and some of the KPIs to match up against that. So the time to hire was quicker. Across the pilot roles, it was just over 30% faster for us to actually get to the conclusion of the roles by doing this process. And that's purely by removing that heavy lifting sort of manual sourcing aspect out of the process. And also all the basic stuff, the note taking, the writing up, the providing the briefs back to the hiring manager. So that was saving around 200 hours from the recruiters across those pilot roles that we put into it. The conversion rate in terms of the candidates that were actually first approached about jobs to actually be interested in the jobs was at 92%. I guess you could compare that to, LinkedIn emails and those kind of traditional reach outs that you might do, which, we actually have a very positive rate there too. It's sort of 40 to 50%, but you can see that we're actually doubling it through this way of engaging with people. And that there were a couple of projects where we were getting through hundreds of candidates in a matter of hours, as opposed to a matter of weeks too, which again builds back into that timepiece as well. So, in terms of time saving, amazing. And then I think the other part of the results is what I was saying earlier about the quality of the output that we could then share and discuss with the business, that they were the two biggest improvements we really saw.
Fantastic. And Ritu, is this the kind of results that you sort of expect to see from this kind of system?
We were thrilled, Matt. AI does the heavy lifting, but humans absolutely stay in control and do what they do best.
Fantastic. And Simon, what's the next stage with this? How are you sort of taking it further into sort of 2026?
Yeah, so obviously going beyond the pilot, sort of that was the proof of concept. That's where we've got to. There's still work to be done on terms of sort of tweaking and customizing how it works through the different layers of different jobs in different parts of the organization. But that's all good. We've proven that there's a nice majority part in the middle that we know we can work at it. So what we now need to do is that the pilot we actually ran like offline essentially. So we actually just used the the Vonk platform to run it. There was quite a lot of manual conversations to get information into that system and equally back into our ATS. So we now, iCIMS is our ATS. So we're going to work next with Vonk at the beginning of the year to get a full integration running with iCIMS. That also allows it to be open to our entire TA team, not just into the pilot group. So we'll obviously get a lot more volume going through the platform now as well. And it also, all that documentation I talked about, all that data capture will then sort of move between the two systems as well. So fully auditable, fully trackable information, as we would expect through our ATS, but also being fed in from the VOP side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really interesting because, what I'm seeing from this AI age that we're entering is, integrations are becoming, almost like a must-have rather than an inconvenience for vendors. I mean, Ritu, what's your perspective on that bit?
Couldn't agree more, Matt. The iCIMS integration isn't just technical plumbing. It's about creating that ecosystem where data flows seamlessly and recruiters have all the context in one place, and hiring managers can make faster decisions with confidence. And it's also where compliance becomes critical. The EU AI Act requires transparency, explainability, and fairness. And this integration ensures that every candidate evaluation meets those standards automatically by default.
The question you asked earlier about, how did the recruitment team react to starting this pilot and going down this journey? I think the integration bit is also part of that answer as well, because it's all very well buying lots of new platforms and systems, but if people have to go somewhere else to use it, they generally will default not to. So putting everything in an integrated place where the recruiter knows I log into this system in the morning and I do everything from here, it means they will adopt it into their workflow much easier than having standalone pieces.
Yeah, 100%. That's such an important aspect to it. So we talked a bit about your partnership. We talked about employer branding. We've talked about AI agents and really the kind of the massive impact that they've had on what you do. Let's talk a little bit about the kind of the Crayon acquisition and what the impact has been for or the issues have been around TA for that.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, in my time here, we've done 20 acquisitions, but this is by far the biggest one. And when you look at it on paper, you might think these are two very similar organizations, so that makes it easier. But actually, in some ways, it can make it more hard because it's where you've got the biggest areas of overlap. So you've got two companies doing the same thing, but in different ways. So if you take that into the TA journey, it meant we had two ATSs running for the last 6 months. Two different HRISs working for the last 6 months. We had two TA teams that, if you look at the job profiles, they kind of look the same, but the way they were working, the way they were organized was very different. We had different market footprints, so that there's areas where they are bigger than us and we don't have much experience, and likewise the other way around as well. So trying to bring together the technology solutions, the people side of it as well, the structure, the right leadership team to organize that. And I think I mentioned it earlier, it's trying to do all that whilst also not breaking what you're trying to do today. So for the last 6 months, we have had multiple interim processes running whilst we kind of get through the decision-making process of analyzing the gap analysis between the two ways of doing things, the positives and negatives of the two ways of doing things. And that's kind of where we still are today. But now we've done a lot of the heavy lifting and the understanding this side of Christmas. What we're planning to do next year is from January, all of these things will start to fit into place as genuine combination. The teams are now fully aligned. The systems will be fully aligned in the new year. And that allows us then to go through. We're actually doing a full process improvement across TA as a result of this coming together as well. That's probably been the most exciting part, is we're not saying do it our way, do it their way. We're looking at both and actually coming up with a new, better way of doing it. So And that all fits back into the AI journey and where that lays into this as well, because whilst we're improving everything we do today, we're adding some new things on top of that, which hopefully will give a far better service and experience both to the organization and the candidates.
Absolutely. And, how does kind of the Vonk partnership fit into the integration? How has it sort of helped?
Yeah, so there are various aspects. So obviously in terms of going back to the core of our relationship right from the beginning, in terms of the job advertising and things like that. So the company, Crayon, they didn't have a multi-posting engine. They didn't have a sort of an advertising campaign marketing partner to work with as well. So they're super excited that they get that side of it as well. And that's specifically important when I say that they're in some markets and they're far bigger in some markets and do more hiring in some markets than we've ever done. So we can now say, well, look, we've got this platform, we've got this relationship. Speak to them about what you struggled with in the past, and we can take that into these markets to actually improve what we're doing there. And then the kind of the AI side of it, as part of any integration, there's obviously a lot of synergy savings are discussed, and where you can actually make improvements from a cost management perspective as well. And so that's where the AI layering of this journey comes into it as well. So just because we're now a bigger company that's going to hire more people, we don't need to keep growing the TA team. We can actually start to deploy these tools, which will allow us to scale without just adding headcount all the time, and actually gives us savings back to the organization.
Fantastic. And what would your advice be to TA leaders going through a similar sort of process?
Well, you've got the balance of take your time, but you also need to go quickly, which I know sounds completely contradictory. But obviously, in these situations, you are given a construct of an integration plan. So for us, it was from sort of the halfway point of this year through to the end of next year, so 18-month window. But everyone will always challenge you to do things as quick as possible. But we did have the discussion very early with the business to say, look, we're not going to go as fast as we could because of that reason, that we don't want to break anything in the meantime. We still had to hire, 2,500 people this year. And so we can't impact that because we're a people business. If we impact that has a business material impact as well. So try and get the term right as to what you should be doing when, and then really spend that first part in that listening phase. And so that's really deep diving on both sides of both organizations as to what's being done, why it's being done, what decisions led up to things being done in a certain way, and then kind of unpicking it, then working backwards and going right back to the beginning. So you've got the two pieces of paper with both companies on it, then you've got the blank piece of paper at the bottom, and you're feeding the best of both into that. And then there's a fourth piece of paper, which is the improvement going forward. So that at the full end of the integration, you can really say, not only have we integrated, but we've actually improved everything we do. And that's going to be better for everybody, for our business.
Fantastic. So we could probably do about another hour on all of this stuff. There's so much kind of going on here. But just in the interest of time, I've got a kind of couple of final questions for you both. So just in terms of sort of summing up the partnership from both sides, give us kind of a quick elevator pitch for the other side, as it were. So Simon, why Vonk? Just give us a quick kind of summary.
Yeah, probably two key words. One, right back to that beginning of the relationship and the reset was the partnership. So that's so important to me personally. I don't like being sold to for the sake of being sold to. I like to be listened to and then being given good solutions. And then I think the second word I'd use is transformative, because the solutions that were coming back were not things maybe that I thought of or were fully aware they were out there. They were actually things that triggered something in my mind that says, okay, yes, this fits with what I'm trying to do here. And they are willing to listen to give us the right and the customized solution that will deliver those needs. So I think those two things, partnership and transformative, have been absolutely fundamental.
Fantastic. And Ritu, same question to you, but the other way around. Why has it been so great to partner with Software One?
One, because Simon is great. But no, honestly, because they pushed us to be better. They didn't just implement a product. They challenged us. They gave us real world complexity and helped us build something together, but stronger. And that's the kind of partnership that drives true innovation. And honestly, because Simon and his team represent the future of TA, pragmatic, data-driven, and human-centered.
Absolutely. And let's finish with a question about the future. So, Simon, what has all this taught you about what the future of TA might look like?
Well, one future is it's undefined. The future is evolving all the time, and again, back to how the recruiters reacted to the AI journey. One of the things that I said to them is that if you don't take part in these pilots, if you don't start to understand these tools, you're going to become obsolete quite quickly. Not because AI will replace you, but you need to understand how to work alongside these tools and the value that they can add to you. So I think, anyone thinking about the future of TA, it's stay on top of these trends and get involved. Get involved in what is coming and keep that future looking as to what's coming next as well, because nothing's standing still for very long. And this is our focus this year to get this all implemented successfully with Volk. I'm sure Ritu will be knocking on my door with what's coming next from their side, just as other providers will be too. So yeah, just keep your eyes open and be up for the challenges and up for trying these things.
Fantastic. And Ritu, your thoughts? Where's all this heading?
Yeah, I think this is the first year where we could truly say that TA is beginning to become strategic and not transactional. Embracing technology is becoming an enabler, not a threat. And building partnerships such as ourselves, with whichever vendor or partner it is, it's got to be with sort of hiring managers and candidates in mind and focusing on outcomes, not activity metrics. That would be critical when we think about the future of TA.
Absolutely. Ritu, Simon, thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you for having us.
My thanks to Simon and to Ritu. You can follow this podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can search all the past episodes at recruitingfuture.com. On that site, you can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter, Recruiting Future Feast, and get the inside track on everything that's coming up on the show. Thanks very much for listening. I'll be back next time, and I hope you'll join me.
This is my show.